Hello and welcome to another video from the only channel that you need to not only survive the current apocalypse but actually enjoy it. And today we're a little bit at a loss for what to call this particular live stream because I don't know what I'm going to be talking about. Although as soon as Ala Toledo gets here, I'm sure he'll have plenty of ideas. I posted a video, or I produced a video yesterday called September 23rd, 2017. Oh my. And I uploaded it yesterday, and it got to about 32%. And so I waited about an hour and I looked and it was still at 32%. So I stopped the upload, started it over again, got it up to 90%, and then it stopped. And I got Ala Toledo on here to ask him if he knew what to do, and he didn't, and I didn't. But if you've had this experience, feel free to message me. Ala Toledo will see it. And it may even be better to just message me separately from this, because as soon as the live stream is over, all those messages disappear and you get a fresh start once the thing becomes a regularly posted video. But the camera that I'm using, this really high definition, super cool Canon yeah, it's Vixia. Records in 1080p, 30 frames per second. Takes a lot of space. The file that I tried to upload today was at 8.5 gigabytes. And I just turned it off again because I could not run this setup and upload at the same time. So anyway, let me see if I can get on YouTube and see if anybody's watching me right now. And if you have some questions, I can see them. I ought to have this turned around so y'all can see the screen. Live streaming? No, that's not it. Well, I don't know how to get there. I would ask you to tell me how, but not being able to get there, I wouldn't have any way of knowing what you're telling me. So, you're going to hear a loud noise in a minute because I am going to attempt to Skype this fella because he's the guy that does all this technical stuff. Do I have my Skype on? Maybe that's why he's not getting in touch with me. Ah! This call, you and Scott. Wait, he missed a call. I'm going to try to call him again. Hey, are you there? Do I have my rig plugged in backwards again? Say something. Hello? We're having technical difficulties. Ah, this is the way it's supposed to work.
Test, yeah.
Hey, we're on.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, I'll just hey, maybe I should start the whole thing over. That way I can.
Well, no, we're good. I mean, if we're live, we're live. So.
And you wasn't here for the first couple of minutes where I was going, "Help me, somebody, please! I'm drowning." But I actually did get through the part where I say, "Welcome to another video from Sustenance and Covering." I did that like really good. So, hey, I'm gonna.
Well, you're a pro at this now.
I've always been a pro at talking. The only problem I have is figuring out how to get people to listen.
So what are we talking about right now? Preppers or what?
I haven't got a clue. I was just explaining. That's what the whole first part of this video was about. Me explaining how I've been. This is 3 times in a row I've attempted to upload my latest video. Are you on YouTube right now? Can you see what people are saying to me? Because I just went to YouTube. I can't figure out how to even get on the thing.
No, that's fine. Yeah, that's fine. Uncle Nesta wants to know if you smoke marijuana, so that's the starting question, I guess.
Man, I haven't smoked for, I don't know, I guess about an hour and a half now. Actually, I shouldn't say that because people are gonna get the wrong idea about me. I was just telling the guy, or I was over at my mama's cousin's house, and talking about raising bees. And she was talking. She said her brother had one of them smokers. You know how it kind of, you put smoke into a beehive and the bees all get kind of lethargic. And I said, well, it ought to work. That's the same thing people do. And basically, you know, for me, I don't even like if I start a fire out in the woods, I will not go on the side where the wind is blowing. You know, I cannot stand the smell of smoke. When I would turn 50, so I can talk about this. So that was a long time ago. When I turned 50, I got a bag of weed because I wanted to find out what it was like. And I understand that there are people who absolutely love weed, and you know, it's like I can understand for real because I love alcohol. But it just it was so hard for me just to inhale that stuff that I didn't even get through the whole. And it wasn't a full bag. I'm sure it was like a little bitty bag, and I got about halfway through it, and I called a friend, and he came up here and got it because I don't like smoke. I don't like any kind of smoke, and now apparently I don't even like alcohol because every time I drink it, I don't get anything out of it, and so, you know.
So do you think it's morally wrong to smoke marijuana, drink alcohol, or is those just artificial things manufactured by the employer?
You know, it's wrong to, you know, eat hamburgers. But you know, he who has not sinned, letteth them throweth the first stoneth. Let's see here. Now I got to get back onto whatever it was that allowed me to see myself because I don't feel comfortable without being able to see myself. What's the name of this program I'm using right now?
XSplit or something like that?
Yeah, that's it. It should be on here somewhere, right? I made the mistake of getting off of it to try to find YouTube. Oh, here we go. There's like a scrolling thing. It's not there. There's XSplit. Yeah, there I am. Yeah, because it's a real big deal for me to make sure my hair is exactly right. Actually, it isn't. I tied my hair tonight. Dadgummit. Now I can't show it off. Well, it's back there. Just here. I'll do this with it. All right. Next question.
Well, not really questions. Just people saying hi and thanks. And Jandy Spencer says, hello, my humpy. Introduced me to you. You rock. Your wife is so pretty. God bless you both. Charlie Meyer, looks like. Is talking about the smoke doesn't bother him. If it leaks out of his computer, he'll let you go. So kind of a joke. And Uncle Nestor, who I asked the question originally about the marijuana, he says he's smoking right now.
Hey, yeah. There you go. Hey, I got a couple of friends that I know for a fact are always smoking when they're watching my videos. So you're in good. You're not alone.
I think it comes with the dreadlocks. Maybe that gives you a...
Oh, yeah, it was really cool when I first grew my dreadlocks. And I don't know what happened. I didn't pray about it or anything. But I was getting annoyed with... It was like I couldn't go to town. Every time I go to town, somebody come up. Hey, man, you know where I could get some weed? I'm like, no, my friend, I certainly do not. I had a guy come up to me at the courthouse. Hey, man, you know where I can get some weed? It's like, even if I did, this ain't where I'm going to tell you.
I think it's probably was difficult when you first got your dreadlocks. That a lot of reactions like this probably put you off.
You know, I'm not trying to be. Here's the thing: when I was, you know, I wanted to join the Navy when I was like 12, and you know, because I wanted that cool uniform, so I could be part of something bigger than myself, and all the little girls I went to school with were going to see me in a uniform and fall in love with me and stuff. And you wear a uniform for 2 months in boot camp where you ain't seeing little girls, and then when you get out of boot camp, you're sick of it. You know, you just got 6 years to go of wearing this stupid thing. And after I got out of the Navy, I got a Harley Davidson and of course the black leather jacket and t-shirts and stuff because I wanted to be part of that. And I guess I got 2 months of that, and it got out of my system, and I never wore a biker costume again. I was a Jehovah's Witness. Honestly, when I joined the Jehovah's Witnesses, that's one of the things I didn't like. I did not like the Jehovah's Witness costume. Biker costumes, they still kind of are cool. Soldier costumes, cool. I've never been a bishop or a cardinal or anything. I might get a costume. I don't want to really be one, but I wouldn't mind. They have some really cool costumes. I mean, there's all kinds. It's like red and white, and there's big pictures of Jesus and stuff on it. But no, I just I didn't put the hair. I didn't grow the hair as part of a costume. It's like how can you completely set yourself apart from the world with a costume? You can't, because that's what the world is. The world's about costumes. So all you can do is get naked and go to jail. So
I guess that's a costume in itself, isn't it? Being
not
naked,
really. Well, in our culture, it's a costume. But if this culture didn't exist, if Satan were all of a sudden to just give up and go home, everybody be naked, it wouldn't be a costume anymore.
I suppose that's true. Hey, let's see. BMW guy says that he doesn't smoke Mary Jane yet, but he's thinking about it because of his neuropathy. So I guess a lot of states are going that way with legalized marijuana.
If it was legal here, it's not. If it was, and it was cheap, I would never smoke it again, ever, no matter what. But I would attempt the tea thing. They say you can not tea, cookies, something you can
brownies.
You can make brownies out of it, and supposedly it's every bit as good as smoking it. Only thing is, if I go to my doctor, he's like, "What are you doing?" I'm like, "Making marijuana brownies." Well, you're gonna have to cut back on the brownies. Marijuana's cool, but don't eat the brownies. You're diabetic.
I think I saw a video recently about this one dog that was like a pet dog that was having a seizure, and they gave him CBD oil, which is, I guess, one of the ingredients that's in marijuana that they extract out, and after the dog was given this spray in the mouth of CBD oil, the seizure stopped. So it seems like there is some justification for the medical use of it.
I'm not a drug guy. I mean, I'm not against it or anything, but when I was first put into the VA system, they're just a hospital. The VA hospital is not the bad hospital. It's just a hospital. It's a bunch of pharmaceutical salesmen. The only thing is, it's free. So they're not really pushing drugs as much at the VA as they are outside, because they don't get kickbacks or anything. But I got on all that junk that they give you for depression and for pain, and it's stuff that you can take out on the street and sell for $10 a pill. And I was telling somebody just today, the VA gave me a bottle. It's 150 pills in a bottle of hydrocodone. And I've had this bottle in there for 5 years, probably, maybe more than that. And there's probably 130 pills still in there. When I'm really hurting, I'll go look at that bottle for like half an hour before I decide whether or not I'm going to eat one of them things. Because, it's dangerous to use drugs. So, I'll decide, well, if I'm going to eat one, I might as well eat 6 of them and wash them down with a little vodka.
Oh boy! Yep, you gotta warn people, because they're gonna think you're serious.
Oh no, I'm kidding. But I do. I'll take it's like if I have to, like if I know I've got a doctor's appointment, or I've got to go to the courthouse for some foolishness, or if I know that I have to drive the car for 6, I've got to be out in town for 6 solid hours, I'll eat one of them pills, and it helps. But I'll tell you this: back when they first gave them to me, the first bottle I got, it's like they said take 3 a day, so I was taking 3 a day. It had no effect at all. Because once you take them, it's like a miracle drug. You're cured of all pain. You feel really good. Everything's fine. The next day you take one, and it seems like you're still a little bit better. The 3rd day, it's not doing anything. These drugs they shock your system into functioning properly, or whatever whatever. And then the next day, Your system's not shocked by it. It doesn't do anything for the pain, doesn't do anything for the depression, that kind of junk. I take this neuropathy pill, and you have to take it, I don't know, 2 or 3 a day. And you can't stop taking it, and it takes like a month before it gets into your system and starts working. And I told my doctor, I said, I take one, maybe one a month. And she says, no, that won't work. Hey, I tell you what, if you don't take any kind of pills, and you take one of them neuropathy pills, it does work. But don't take it the next day, because it won't. They're just, drugs are, they're just a scam. They're all a scam, no matter what it is. I mean, even like nicotine and cigarettes, from what I understand, people that smoke cigarettes the first time, like I had a friend that quit smoking. He went 2 or 3 years without smoking, and he said the first time he had a cigarette was like the most wonderful experience he'd ever had in his life. After 3 years of not smoking them, he smoked one, and he's like, it is the most intense drug he's ever used. But, 3, 4 days later, he's just doing it by habit and doesn't even know why he's doing it.
Well, have you ever heard about those vision quests that they have, like out in the desert or something?
But peyote? Is that the
peyote?
Stuff? Or something.
Yeah.
There's probably other things out there. I'm not a real drug guy. I walked around in a suit, knocking on doors, giving people Watchtower magazines for 15 years. It's like I'm not real hip to all the cool stuff that's out. I mean, I was in the Navy, and we had that thing going on, and I'm old. You live long enough, you're exposed to everything, but it's just never ever interested me. I've always liked like food and women. Those things are interesting. Everything else is just boring.
Yeah, well, I guess people are ready to shift off the topic of drugs now. So, Uncle Nesta brings up the idea about why you have never done like a worship session with like the live stream, or maybe with some of the other things like a formal religious practice.
There is a concept in the Bible that the Pharisees would, this is scriptural. I can't go chapter and verse. I'm not one of them kind of people. But the Pharisees, whenever they would do anything, it had to be a big show. Like I was saying earlier. And I was just kidding about getting a cardinal costume. It is a cool looking thing, but not for me. But the Pharisees would wear these big cardinal costumes, and they would have trumpet blowers that would go with them. If they would donate money, they would go out and I donated money for the Lord. That kind of stuff. And Jesus said, well, they're getting paid already. Look at the crowds. Right now, they're on a high. They're getting paid. But they're not going to get paid later. So it's always a pay me now, pay me later thing. And I have seen YouTubers that I don't despise, but there are YouTubers that get out there and get on their knees in front of a camera and pray, and not my thing. I'm trying to do it in, I'm like Jesus said, when you really want to play to your Father, go into your innermost room, close the door, pray real quiet, don't let nobody know you're in there, and then, the Lord who you're praying to will listen to you. But Jesus prayed publicly. People asked him, how should we pray? And that's how we know what to pray for. Pray for your kingdom to come, your will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread. Forgive us our trespasses as we forgive others. And deliver us from the evil one, or deliver us from temptation. And basically, there's not a whole lot more you can pray for. If you really want to find a job, I spent years and years, please God, let me find a way to support my family. And I always had some kind of money coming in, but I was always like day-to-day struggle. And that's probably why Jesus said, pray, Lord, give us this day our bread for this day. It didn't say give us a year's supply of groceries. Why am I looking at the screen? There's a camera. I'm supposed to look at the camera. Can y'all see? Yeah, y'all can see me 2 times. I'll just turn this kind of away. I got my hair right, so I don't need that anymore.
I guess the question, though, is more about why haven't you started a church yourself? Do you think that maybe a small country church? No, there's never going to be a church. I promise you that.
all structures constructed for worship are satanic. All. There's never ever once been any structure anywhere, including the temple in Israel, that was pleasing to God. But this is the plan. If you want to hear it, I'm sure everybody does. It's from even back when I was a kid. You know, we did a video today, or not a video, podcast, that I talked about whether or not I'm a prepper, and it's like, no, I'm not a prepper. I'm just kind of like a hermit. I don't want to go into town. So the secret to not going into town is to have all your food on your property. Since I can't really produce a healthy diet here, I have to go to town. So when you go to town, get everything that'll fit in your car. That way you're set. You don't have to go to town again for a while. And but when I was a kid, I always just dreamed. I mean, when I was in the Navy, I had just running list. I had notebooks full of notes of all the things I was going to do. I was constantly drawing out house plans, and the whole fantasy from the time I was a child was somehow getting away from people and being self-sufficient and never going to town again. Well, probably, I guess part of that fantasy was always to have some kind of a bug-out vehicle. And I always tell people bugging out is a stupid thing to do. You need to just have you a place that's nobody messes with, instead of leaving your house that's out in the middle of everything and trying to find a place where nobody's going to mess with you. But I've always wanted to be able to interact one-on-one with my subscribers. Since the very first time I ever posted a Bible video and somebody said something nice about it, I started dreaming about meeting that person. And now I've got probably 500 people earthwide that appreciate what I'm doing. I would like to be able to meet with all 500 of them personally. That would be our church. Just me going to Bug Tussle, Tennessee in my camper and spending a couple of days with a subscriber, moving on to the next town, spend a couple of days with a subscriber, and maybe the whole time I'm traveling, videotape my travels, videotape my meetings with these people, and once a week produce some kind of a video, a substantial video that's doesn't involve travel and meeting people. But at the same time, you know, I've got family members that are not in the best of health that need assistance, and they can't travel. And I've got a dog, and I got a cat, and I got a bunch of chickens, and I got a house. You know, if you drive away from a house, when you get home, it won't be there. You know, if you leave your house, you come back, it's going to be completely covered in vines, maybe burnt down, maybe ransacked. But this is a true story. It's a true fact. Is that the first time I ever heard of eBay, I think the very first search that I did on eBay was camper. And to this day, it's like every night while I'm sitting in front of the TV, I'm scrolling through every camper that they have on eBay. And I've even got
you've got the bus though, right? You don't
well, the
need
whole
a
thing about the
camper,
bus is that when I bought the bus, I could drive the bus. But the bus is, you know, it's a school bus. It's for kids. So I think the ceiling is 5'8", 5'6", and I'm 6'4". And even though I walk bent over, I'm not comfortable being forced to bend over. Like that bend over is like a 3-inch bend. So I'm comfortable at a 3-inch bend. I'm not comfortable straight up, and I'm not comfortable at an 8-inch bend. So the bus, I could take the roof off and weld, you know, put a spacer in there and weld the roof back. But then again, I can't even do that anymore. I have to pay somebody to do that. It'd be $1 million. On top of that, tires don't go bad from the road unless you're driving. But if you're not driving, they're still going bad. And the school bus tires are about maybe $500 a piece to replace. And if you could find somebody to replace them, because that bus got split rims on it. And I don't know if you know what split rims are. Do you know, Al of Toledo?
I hate cars. Sorry, I have no clue what that is.
There's like
I know you used to work on a lot of them, though.
Well, the normal tires, you know, you take what's called spoons and you can peel a tire off, or you use a tire machine and press it off. But those old split rims are weird. It's like the rim comes apart. There's like a ring that goes in there and it snaps into place. And those things are notorious for exploding or blowing up. If you don't get them seated just right, and you're trying to get the air in the tire, they'll explode. That's where they originally designed those cages that they put tires in when they're inflating them. And I mean, even when I was a kid, some guy down the road, I'm talking about like an 18-year-old, was changing a split rim tire not far from my house, and it blew his head off. I mean, just instantly decapitated him. So they're dangerous. It's hard to find anybody to put tires on it. The bus is ready to go. I mean, it's fueled up. The engine is perfect. The oil's all been changed. All the filters have been changed. I've replaced all the belts, all the hoses. The interior is really cool, but it needs $3,000 worth of tires, and it's too low for me to walk around in, and it's difficult to steer something that big. Even if it's, even if you're going down the highway, just holding the wheel, it's very uncomfortable. So it's the bus has my time ran out with the bus. If I could have used it back when I first built it, it would have been great. I could have drove it around for a year, maybe dumped it off on somebody and got something else. But now I don't know what I would do. Just sell it for scrap, or I don't know. I told the kid next door he could have it for $1,000, but he had to bring tires up there with him because I didn't even want him leaving my yard without tires.
Yep. Well, a lot of people are, well-wishing, saying they'd love to meet you. Some people are saying that, let's see, Patricia Ribrick says...
Patricia Ribrick. Yeah. One of my best... Well, I think everybody here on this live stream is one of my best subscribers. But yeah, she's I know
wishing
her name.
You and your wife a lot of love.
Back at you.
Charlie, it looks like Charlie Meyer is saying something about you were talking about the temple back in Jerusalem. He's made a comment or a question asking about the aroma of the from the temple. Like, I guess there was a lot of incense always.
Yeah, I've heard that there was a pleasing. It was a pleasing aroma to Yahweh when they were burning these. Not incense, but they were burning the parts of the animal, the fatty parts. They were putting them on the altar and burning them. As they were slaughter animals, so the blood would spray out of them, and then they would cut the fatty parts out and burn that. And that was a pleasing. Basically, what it is, it's appeasing God. But it does say very specifically that it was pleasing to Elohim. Elohim is plural for God, so it's not just the creator God that this is pleasing. It's pleasing the gods, and that's not necessarily the good gods or the bad gods. I mean, if you look at what the temple was about, the first temple was built by the first temple was built by Solomon, and the Bible paints a very, very dark picture of Solomon. He's not the good guy in that story. And then and Solomon hired out Hiram, which was the king of Tyre. If you go back and look, it says very clear that Hiram, that's the guy that the Freemasons worship, Hiram Abathar. Hiram is the one that built it after he made a deal with Solomon. Now, a lot of people don't understand that area that we call the Promised Land is actually Phoenicia, the Phoenician Empire. Hiram was the king of Phoenicia. Solomon was simply the king of that part of Phoenicia, which we call Jerusalem. Or actually, yes, let's see, Solomon was one of the kings of the whole country. So it wasn't just Jerusalem. He was a king over all 12 tribes. A little bit after that, things fell apart, and you had the country split in two. But it's Hiram, who was the king of Tyre, is called Lucifer in another verse. So the only reason that Hiram would be called Lucifer is because he was possessed by Satan. And actually, let me see what the last temple was built by Herod. It was built by Herod. People say that no, Herod just went in and repaired the temple that was already there. That's not true. Herod built the temple. The Bible very clearly says that Herod built the temple. It's secular historians that say he repaired the temple. But it does say in secular history that every single stone in the temple was removed and replaced during Herod's reign as ruler over Judea. So that was the third temple. And then the second temple, the intermediate temple, was built by the king of Persia. And the king of Persia at the time was it Cyrus? Cyrus the Great. He paid for the building of the temple. He sent workers. He sent materials. And he was the ruler of the promised land when that happened. So it's not like, I think the people that went back were the high priest Joshua, and there was a few others that are mentioned. But it was the king of Persia's temple. And in the Bible it very clearly says that when Daniel was praying to God, is that the angels heard him. And so Gabriel told, it was like 40 days later. It took 40 days for Gabriel to reach Daniel. And the first thing that Gabriel said is, I tried to come to you immediately upon hearing your prayer, but was unable to because I was accosted by the royal prince of Persia. So that's Cyrus. And it wasn't Cyrus. He was talking once again about Lucifer, because Cyrus was possessed by Lucifer. This prince of the royal realm of Persia was not the fleshly being. It was the spirit that controlled that empire. And so until Michael came to my rescue, I could not get away from royal prince of Persia, the builder of the temple. So all three of the temples were built by Satan. The Bible makes that clear. Is that shocking? Are people getting shocked that I said that?
No. They're all over the place. So synoptic problem, Shannon, and let's see who else. Marshmallow 983 are all sending you their love.
Back at you.
Simple Jones is he's giving you a hard time about your excuses about not traveling around, and he says you should get a motorcycle with a sidecar.
Oh, hey, I've had a Harley before, and I'm telling you, I'm limited to what I can do. My mom actually tried to give me a riding mower around a while back, and I went over to her house. I couldn't ride that. I could not even sit on it because it's just my joints don't work that way anymore. And when you start it and it's it felt like somebody hit me in the back with a jackhammer. So I actually push all this with a little push and more. That people say there's no way, if you've got a bad back, there's no way you can push that. It's like, well, I can't ride and ride more. If I could ride on a ride more, I'd be cutting it with a ride more. I can't ride a motorcycle anymore. I can't hardly drive my car. So, but here's the thing. Here's what I've been thinking. I have invited people over here. When I first started the channel, when I was still kind of ignorant about how many people wanted to do me harm, I was inviting people over here freely, and just thank God, everybody that came did okay. Nobody, tried to rip me off or con me or get me involved in some kind of wickedness or just tormenting me. None of that happened. But at this point, now that I know how people are, I'm less nervous about having people over. Plus, now I'm really, I don't want people over here unless the place looks good, and I am so behind on everything. It's like I go out there and cut grass for 15 minutes. I got to come inside and lay down. In the afternoon, go cut grass for 15 minutes. You know what? It ends up, the only way I can get this place cut is to cut every day for a solid year. And by the time I get done with it, the part where I started is overgrown. And it's embarrassing for me to have people see, the great permaculture forest that I built just falling apart, houses falling apart. So I'm kind of limited. I could either travel somewhere, which is impossible, or I can invite people over here, which is impossible. So,
Well, let's see. Mr. A. Brownfield is asking about the eclipse and if there's any biblical meaning to it. And Patricia Ribrick is chiming in that the luminaries are for times and seasons. So any thoughts about the upcoming eclipse?
I've had several people ask me about. Well, you asked me about it. We were supposed to try. I was like, for like 30 solid seconds, I was like, me and Alan Toledo are going to see the eclipse together. And I was like, wait a second, I can't leave here.
That's still up.
It's up for you. You'll be there. Take pictures.
I can take a video, I guess.
Hey, you know what you could do? You could come over here and pick me up and bring me.
I was thinking about offering that. I mean, it's kind of unusual that I would drive all the way down to Mississippi, pick you up, and then come
to your house.
Bring me back to my house. And so, I mean, it's only an hour and a half away for a drive for me to get to the.
Doggone, I don't know if I want to ride with you. It's like an hour and a half to To get to my house?
No, 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 an hour and a half to get to the
Eclipse.
perfect point for the eclipse. But
Yeah.
to come get you, it'd be a 10-hour ride that way.
Well,
But anyway,
that's one of the things I'm always thinking about is that maybe one day I can get a camper and get a driver. My wife can't drive. My mama's an insane driver. I'm scared to death to go anywhere with her because she never go. She's always like pushing to see how fast she can go without getting a ticket or going into orbit. And yeah, but something will work out. Maybe this is what I'm supposed to do. Maybe I'm supposed to sit in this recliner for the rest of my life talking to people on the internet.
well, let's see. Marie's Vegetable Gardening is asking about your last your videos, what they all boiled down to. If you could kind of give a summary.
Yeah, I know. This is really sad. And I had this thing so under control. I made a video. I'd like to show you some of it, but I'm not going to go through all that. Because you know what my videos look like. I'm standing there in front of that board with a crayon in my hand. But I did an hour. It's exactly an hour. I thought it was like an hour and 5 minutes. I think it's an hour and 3 seconds of me standing there talking about September 23rd, which is just a good... It's basically titled September 23rd just to get people to listen to it because people are interested in that. But September 23rd, the answer to what is September 23rd about is basically part 4 of the Bible Code video series. I didn't make the Bible Code video series because the script isn't finished. I didn't know that. It's been so long since I looked at it. But I've got 3 of them up there, 1, 2, and 3, and they don't really take you anywhere. They just lay the groundwork, which is the way I normally work. Then you get to number 4. Number 4 is everything. Number 5 is everything. And then I had 6 and 7, which I guess 4, 5, and 6 are almost completed, the scripts, but I don't want to, I'm not in the mood to type right now. Number 7 is basically a blank piece of paper with welcome to another video typed on it. But the September 23rd thing is, here's Virgo. Virgo's in the ecliptic, and I'm not going to get up and use this board because I just realized the last one I did that the quality of this dash cam, or whatever you call it, webcam, is so low that you can't see anything I draw on the board. But here's since mostly just people that are hip are watching this, here's the general gist of the thing. In the Bible, there's a lot of talk about stars with no explanation. It talk about 7 kings, 7 wise men, 7 demons, 7 spirits, 7 eunuchs, and 7 stars. So the association is made that all of these characters are somehow related because they're all in 7s. It's like the woman that Jesus hung out with, Mary Magdalene, and it says, who is Mary Magdalene? Well, Mary Magdalene is the woman from whom Jesus expelled 7 wicked spirits. So the 7 just keeps coming up, and it's sometimes good, sometimes it's bad. But that number is associated with the stars. Now, another thing that it's associated with, the number 7, is 7 heads. Okay, so there's like in Revelation 7 heads, but it very specifically in the book of Revelation says the 7 heads of the serpent are 7 mountains, and the 7 heads are 7 kings. So if you look at secular history, if you go out and you look at what is written about the stars in the ancient past, there is no distinction made between the word for stars and the word for planets in most languages. The Babylonian word for star is the same as the Babylonian word for planets. The Hebrew word for star is the same thing as the word for planets. It's Kawkabim. Kawkabim in Hebrew. In Greek, it's the Astarte. And another number that pops up quite a bit in the Bible is 12. And we get the same thing, 12 stars. So it's like when, Joseph, Jacob had 12 kids. One of them, the youngest one, was Joseph, and Joseph said that he had a dream where the sun and the moon and the 11 stars were bowing down to him. So now we have to figure out what is the 11. If the 7 is the planets, and currently science the religion of science that I don't believe in, but sometimes they get it right, says that there are 7 planets out there. But it doesn't say anything about 12 planets. So there is the possibility that at one time there were 12 planets, because over and over again, you know, we're told that there's asteroid belts, and in secular history, ancient mythological stories, there's always a war, and it's over a woman. There's a woman that's having sexual relations with all of these different gods, and so the gods get in a war over, and several of the gods are killed. So Mars is the god of war. It's all beat up, just like the moon. You know, just like our Earth, got craters all over it from something that happened in the ancient past, associated with the celestial phenomenon, celestial events. And so we have to figure out what are planets, what are stars, because we don't have a distinction made. Now, there are some verses that specifically talk about specific, what would seem to be specific stars, and like the word Calcabene. I think it's Kayun Calcabene. That's Saturn. And then Mars is spoken of. Near the end of the Bible, I think it's Barnabas and Paul are preaching, and the people that they're preaching to start bowing down to them and saying, look, it's Mercurius and whoever. So Mercury's mentioned. But when you look at how it's all laid out, it's more about time than it is about celestial objects. So you've got 7 planets that circle the sun, and they circle it like on a plane. Now, the sun is surrounded by billions of stars, and the stars are not on a plane. They're three-dimensional. They're just like every direction you can see stars. But it's just common knowledge that Earth-wide, throughout all of human history, the layer of stars that existed around where the planets were circling is called the ecliptic. And so in the ancient past, big decisions were made depending on the position of the planets relative to one another and relative to the ecliptic. So you would have, and that's the way astrology works today. You know, Mars is in Taurus, or Mars is in Virgo. And that's what these people are doing now with the September 23rd thing, is that Jupiter is in Virgo. Well, Virgo means the virgin, but if you do any research, Virgo is actually one of these sex gods or sex goddesses that had sex with all of the wicked gods. And the wicked gods are all like, well, it depends on where you're at, you know. If you're Greek culture or Roman culture, you're talking about Poseidon, or you're talking about what is the Neptune. So Neptune and Poseidon are the same planet from different cultures. In fact, I just had a book over there. I was reading the latest book of Enoch, like the one that goes back to 4th century AD. And it lists all of the planets by name, and those planets are in Latin names. So instead of Jupiter, it's Cronus. See, and so now Jupiter is inside of Virgo. Well, Jupiter in the Bible is always Satan. It's not God's son. It's not the man-child or boy-child from the book of Revelation. It is very specifically Satan. Saturn is Satan. Mars is Satan's son. Mercury is, what is it? Well, it's Mercury in the New Testament, but I think in the Old Testament it's something else. But there are always these demonic gods, the gods that impregnated human females, or the gods, or the demigods that were the product of those matings. And then you've got one goddess, which is Venus. Now, here's something to keep in mind that's going to kind of blow your mind, because since I haven't put the video up yet, all of the planets in every culture have male names. So, like if you lived in China, you would have 7 planets in the ancient past, and 6 of them would be named after male names, but 1 would be female, and it's always the same planet. It's Venus. You know, if you're in a Babylonian religion, you've got all these male gods, but you've got Venus, which is female. Now, if you and I look at the stars, they all look like little dots, right? But they're all moving together as one unit. But the planets move a little different, and they're a little bit brighter usually. So if you look up and you see Venus, Venus is the brightest star in the sky, but there's really nothing to make people think that Venus is somehow a different gender than Mercury, Mars, Jupiter, Saturn, Neptune, and Uranus, right? But what about the religion of science? Well, the religion of science says, and this was speculated, you know, hundreds of years ago, somebody came out with a theory about how the planets worked and said, well, the planets have to work according to these laws. And those laws were that the planet had to be a certain weight in order to maintain an orbit around the sun. It would have to be at a certain distance, and it would have to be spinning at a certain rate. And all the planets have to spin the same direction. Well, what happened over the course of time, telescopes got really, really big, really, really good, really clear. And technology improved to the point where we could actually see the rotation of the planets, and every planet out there rotates the same way. The Earth, Mars, Jupiter, Saturn, they all rotate the same way except Venus. Venus rotates the opposite direction. So there's a lot more going on in ancient mythologies than just a bunch of stupid cavemen. They were able to see something about Venus in the ancient past that let them know it was different than the others. Now, every single constellation in the ecliptic, this is kind of a neat fact. They're all different sizes, right? So when the 12 tribes of Israel were established, the first thing they had to do was divide the land up. Well, they divided up in a weird way. If you ever go look at a map of the Holy Land, you will see that each one of those areas that was assigned to one of the tribes is a different size. Well, the constellation and the ecliptic are all a different size, right? So there's an association. But what's even more important is that where they cross the ecliptic, they're the same size. So all of these constellations, and how odd they are, they're all exactly 30 degrees of the Earth's rotation. So, and not the Earth's rotation, but the Earth's travel around the sun. You know, as we're spinning, these stars are just going by like every 24 hours, close to it, not quite. But as we're traveling around the sun, what's happening is you've got the sun blocking half of the sky out because you cannot see stars in the daytime sky. So in the summer, all of the stars that are in the summer daytime sky are invisible. So you can't see things like, I don't even know, maybe Taurus. I can't remember which ones are which. But 6 months later, when it's winter, you can see all those stars, but you can't see the ones that are in the daytime sky or daytime winter sky. But there are lines of demarcation that have been known from ancient past that are exactly 30 degrees apart, and those particular stars are the 12 stars that are always spoken of in the Bible. So every time you hear about 12 and you hear about 7, if you look at the stories and how they're laid out, it's describing a very specific point in time. Like if it's when the Babylonian Empire rose to power, well, the Star of Babylon would have been one of those 7 planets, and it would have been in the tribe or the constellation that granted permission for that king to take over the empire. And another thing that was important was that every single one of those stories talks about horns and talks about crowns. Like if you're in the book of Revelation, you know, the beast, 7-headed beast had 7 heads and 10 crowns, or seven heads and 10 horns and 10 crowns, but then the other beast had 7 heads and 7 crowns and 10 horns. So there's this thing that if you go to any church, I don't care what satanic cult you attend, if you listen to these guys talk, they'll give you some kind of silly story about, well, the 3rd head, that was Russia because Russia had 2 kings at one time, and that would be the 2 horns, and that's all baloney. Every year in the ancient nation of Israel, the tribal elders were commanded to go out during the eclipse. They would get one eclipse every year. On the first day of the 7th month, that's the spring and fall equinoxes, there would be an eclipse. One would be over the Promised Land. 6 months later, they have another one over the Hawaiian Islands. So they didn't have to blow a horn when that one happened. But they did have to go out and blow a horn every year during the lunar eclipse. Now, the crown, the word crown in every language, nearly every language, the word crown is the same as the word corona. Corona means the ring that appears around a planet when there's a solar eclipse. So you have a solar eclipse, the sun turns black, but right around the outside you'll see that ring. That's where we get our concept of a crown. When that planet gets its crown from the sun, the kings on earth would get a crown on their head, corona. That's where we get the word coronation. So like when you're reading in the book of Revelation about the 7-headed beast, what you're reading about is 7 different planets appearing. and they will. When the last days begins, these planets will start to reappear in their normal orbits, and some of those orbits will cause eclipses, some lunar eclipses, some solar eclipses, but that's what the horns and the crowns are about. The progression of eclipses that would take place from the time that Jesus took over rulership till 1,260 days later when Jesus rids the earth of Satan. So it's, when Jesus was asked, what's a sign of your presence? He didn't say earthquakes and tornadoes. He said, if somebody tells you about earthquakes and starvation, they're liars. So if you go to a church that talks about these prophetic events and they're not telling you about the movement of the planets, they're liars. Because Jesus said, when you see the sign of Son of Man in sun and moon and stars, that's when you're going to have the last days. So, whenever you see, I'm lost now. What? Straighten me out now.
Wow, I mean, you really went to town on that question. Well, I think people are liking it, though.
Did you get some coffee or anything while I was doing that?
I know, really. I zoned out for a while, I think. Yeah. I've heard that story a lot of times, so hopefully it was good for other people, though. So. Good stuff, though. No, that's good stuff. But yeah, there is some comments. So Charlie Elmer mentions that God always mocks astrologers in Isaiah 47:13, and then he goes on and says the zodiac and the stars are all in the ecliptic. Kind of like I think that was your point about the 30 degrees and all that stuff. All the zodiac signs.
Yeah, here's something. Yeah, that's right. Every 30 degrees is a different zodiac sign. But here's something else that's kind of proof positive that the temple was a satanic temple, is that the floor plan of the temple, if you go look at it, it's a zodiac. I mean, it's 12, you got the candles or the oil lamps or whatever, 12 of them, and you go into the Ark of the Covenant. Over the Ark of the Covenant was... well, when they went into the tent of meeting, back before they built the temple, Moses' face would glow, like it would put out sunlight. And it was so bright that he had to wear a veil because it was scaring everybody. So he would go into the temple, or go into the tent with Aaron, his brother, who was a priest. And his priest brother would put this vest on with 12 stones in it. And each of those stones represented one of the constellations. And I cover that in the video that I was trying to post today. But he would go around the Ark of the Covenant looking into Aaron's vest, because it was part, like I say, it was part of the zodiac. You go into the temple, there's the 12 lights, and you go the circle around all that, or the 7 lights, 12 lights with 7 lights on each one, or something like that. And there's cherubs all the way around on the inside of the temple. Remember, he said, don't make any images of anything on earth. And so when he told them to build a temple, what does he say? He said, well, put some statues in there. So, I mean, we're starting to see that there's a pattern. But even after Moses died, no one else went in with this glowing light coming out of their face. But the high priest that went in reported that when they went into the temple, and this is in the Bible, they would go into the Holy of Holies. That's where the Ark of the Covenant was. And above the Ark of the Covenant was a miniature sun, just glowing, inside the temple glowing. And as the priest walked around it, that light would go through those 12 stones in his breastplate and shine that light onto the white garment that was underneath.
So Charlie Elmer mentions that those stones were representative of the tribes, or they? But
yeah, it did say that. It said it very specifically that, commandeth Aaron to put on a vest, and the vest is to have 12 stones, and each of the stones shall be, sapphire, amethyst, ruby, topaz, and it lists all of those. Okay, this is really weird. Yeah, the stones represented, each one of those stones represented the tribes of Israel, right? So those stones were not the land that the Israelites were on, but each of those stones represented that land. And remember, in the constellations, those constellations represented the tribal inheritances of those tribes, right? Now, I don't know, as I was explaining earlier, every month there would be a different constellation in alignment. Right, so you're in Taurus. The moon would rise in Taurus. It would set in Taurus, because Taurus, as the moon was going over, Taurus would be going over, and the stones that, like I say, were representing the moon. So why would each stone be a different color? Remember, in the ancient past, we had an equal 360-day year, and each of the 12 months had 30 days, which means that the moon in the ancient past would have never gone out of the night sky. Remember, in Genesis, it said God made the two great luminaries, one to rule over the day and one to rule over the night. And every ancient culture around the world recognized the moon as the night goddess and the sun as the day goddess, and yet it's not the way it is today. You can go out in the middle of the day and you look up at noon and there's the sun, and the moon could be, you know, just a little bit away from it, you know, because the moon travels a completely different cycle than it did in the ancient past. But in the ancient past, when the moon was exactly opposite of the sun, so the sun is in the daytime sky, the moon is in the nighttime sky, and the earth is right in the middle. Remember, before the flood, it says that there were waters below the earth and waters above the earth. And the waters above the earth are called the shield, the ice shield, the sea of glass, the sky window. All of those words appear in our Bibles in ancient Greek and ancient Hebrew. It's just that in English they get really, really messed up. So we call it, what, the floodgates of the heavens. I can promise you the word flood is not in the original Hebrew text. The word gate is not in the original Hebrew text. None of that is in there. It's called the sky window, very clearly, the sky window. And in the book of Revelation, when it says that God was sitting before the sea of glass, that's not what it says. It says that God was sitting before the hard, transparent sea. So you've got a soft sea on the earth. That's water in liquid form. Then up in the upper atmosphere, where it's like 300 degrees below zero, you have hard water. You have this ice shield. Well, as the light was shining through that ice shield, it was coming out on the other side and hitting the moon. Now remember, in the ancient past, we had a regular 360-day year with 12 equal 30-day months. The reason we had 12 30-day months is because as the earth was shifting its angle through the course of the year, you know, you have summer, you have winter. Well, as it's shifting its angle, the moon is shifting its angle. So the light going through that ice shield was falling on the moon, and just like a prism, the light was being separated into its individual colors. So it's the colors of the rainbow. And so when the moon was in Taurus, might be blue. The only one I really know is Gemini. Gemini was amethyst because that's my mama's birthstone. But that's where we get birthstones from. Birthstones are supposed to represent the moon from the ancient past, when the light of the sun was passing through the Earth's atmosphere and changing the color of the moon as the moon passed through the ecliptic. So you look out there.
Good. Okay, yeah, that's pretty good. Yeah. So yeah, we're kind of trying to move on. There's a lot of questions. We're going to try to move on from astrology, but Matt C. just has one final question in this regard. How did you learn so much about astrology and astronomy and all that stuff? Was it through books or what was it?
Well, I mean, the original stuff, figuring out that it was about the Bible, is just, that's just, I don't know, just knew it. But you know, I don't understand astrology. I have to go read about it. When I see something, or I see something in the Bible that I don't understand, I mean, I'll actually wear myself out looking through the Bible trying to figure it out. And if I see that a verse in the Bible is about the passing of time, and I see everything that's when it's associated in the passing of time with colors or with certain animals or certain kings, and it sounds just like mythology, then I go check out mythology to see why the Bible would sound like that. You know, when it talks about God destroying the Baals, those Baals are the demigods that are represented in our sky. I don't know if you know this or not, but it's like if you go back and look at the stories of Rome, like the stories of Andromeda and Perseus and all of those, it's like, oh, Perseus, he is the savior of our land. For this you shall be memorialized in the sky. And that's how Perseus got in the sky. You know, that's how Andromeda, that's how Virgo got in the sky. They were put there by the gods. Well, if you read book of Genesis, I promise you this is the case. If you go back and read it, it's the same thing. You know, God is coming to Jacob, and Jacob is calling his sons to him, you know. Oh, my sons, come to me. I must give you a final blessing, because I am about to go the way of all the earth. You, Judah, the commander's staff shall never passeth from your hands. And then and he lists all 12 of his kids, And it's the same thing. It's like, you shall be in the sky, and you will be known for lightning and thunder, and you shall be known for as an archer, because you are going. And if you look, all of these things are up there. There's an archer, and this archer, what's he doing? He's shooting at a horse. That's what it says there. I mean,
Yep, yep, yep.
the stories are not identical. Because it's like, obviously, if you're looking at the one about what is it, the twins? That's my mom. What is that? That one? Well, anyways, the constellation
Gemini.
Gemini, the twins. It lists two brothers and says you are two. He lists them together. They get one blessing because they're Gemini, right? So then he goes to Judah and he goes, Judah is a lion. Okay, well that's Leo. So and it may be that. And here's the thing: after the resurrection, when everybody is back to life again, and there's no more demons, and the sky is clear, no more pollution, the sky window's up, we'll look up, and our ecliptic is very likely not going to be the same ecliptic. So at some point in the ancient past, the entire solar system shifted. I always talk about how each of the planets has shifted over time because our North Star is not the same North Star that we had on the day before Jesus died. But the ecliptic itself, if it shifted, then you're not going to have Gemini, Leo, Virgo. You may end up with Draco, Perseus, those folks.
Okay, well, let's kind of move on from the astrology. Synaptic problem has been persistent about one question regarding your thoughts about the book, The Course in Miracles. Apparently, this is supposed to be some sort of revelation of Jesus Christ. Have you heard of this?
Never heard of it. It's not that it's not that I haven't had any contact with it, but I forget a lot of stuff. But I don't have any memory of what that is. The Course of Miracles.
Yeah.
Keep an eye on if he leaves a little bit more information, maybe he can say it in a different way that I'll remember it. Because I've read the books, the lost books of the Bible, the forgotten books of Eden, the Nag Hammadi library, most of the Quran, most of the Book of Mormon, all of that stuff, because I want to kind of understand. I want to understand what my listeners have in their heads before I start talking to them, and also I just want to understand what other cultures around the world saw in the sky when the Bible was writing all this stuff down.
Going back a little bit to this whole thing about traveling around in a bus and a pop-up camper or all on a motorcycle, Icicle 424 says maybe you should consider a meetup with your subscribers, at least the people that are nearby.
Like a neutral place?
Yeah, like maybe a restaurant or something.
Yeah, that would be cool. I think about it all the time. It's just like I don't know, if somebody could say the right thing to me to break my paranoia for a day, I might get weak and agree to something like that. And, you think about it, I've been doing this for 10 years now, and in 10 years this has never left my mind, and yet the answer is always still no. There's very few people I trust, and a lot of times when I trust people, it's the wrong people. But, there's going to come a point when I don't have so many responsibilities. A lot of this is just family responsibilities. My mom would go nuts if she knew I was meeting a bunch of weirdos from the internet, and I wouldn't want her to worry about me. And there's no way to go without telling her, because she would have to come in and check on my wife. I guess I could bring my wife with me, but no, that wouldn't work because my mom ain't going to take care of chickens. She'll take care of my dog, she'll take care of my cat, she won't take care of the chickens. My wife would have to stay here and take care of chickens. So at this point.
Oh, it wouldn't be that long. I mean, it'd only be an hour or two.
Just meeting up somewhere on the South Mississippi coast.
Right, yeah. At a restaurant or something.
Yeah, I forgot.
Something to keep in mind.
I had forgot. Yeah, I had forgot I gave everybody that secret information that I lived in South Mississippi.
Well, I mean, all your videos are basically about the hurricane and everything. So it doesn't take much to duck them.
Yeah, when I'm out there in the woods, it don't look like New Orleans.
Yeah. Hey, let's see. Tom K is asking, what did the flood accomplish? This flood.
I don't know that it really accomplished what it. It's one of those things. It's part of the cycle. God has put. This is my own thoughts, and you're not going to get me to be able to show you in the Bible that this is the case. But we know, if you go back and look at the little teeny tiny bit of stuff that God was sharing with people back then, that they were destroying the earth. he's telling them, please don't do this. If you do this, you're going to end up gardening. You know, you can't be building things, and you can't be killing things. And what we had like 2,000 years of people cutting trees down and killing things. You know, I think the pyramids were built before the flood. So all of these different things are going on, and our ecosystem, even today, is extremely fragile. Can you imagine a world where we've got a sky window above the earth, this piece of thin shield of ice, maybe a mile thick, and we're altering the temperature down here? You know, what does that do to the stability of that thing? And so when God said, I am bringing a flood, or I am bringing fire and brimstone on Sodom and Gomorrah, or I am bringing, there's a lot of things that God says he's bringing. And it's like things that God doesn't bring, but it's things that, if we imagine that God is everything, and God is everywhere, and God is in us, and he's in these animals, and you're cutting down trees, and God says, I am bringing a flood, a lot of that could be God is everywhere, and we're killing most of God, and so the flood is going to come because we're attacking God. God has put these systems in place to hold all this up, and we've wrecked the system, so they're falling. Now, this is not gospel, but it's very possible that the building projects and things that we did on this earth caused the flood. Because, like I said, it was a big shield of ice, and if you read how the flood took place, it sounds like the ice shield was fracturing around the equator in a perfect circle, starting at the equinox, which would have made sense because that's when the sun would have been directly in line with it. And I've said before that it's altogether possible that the Earth's angle would have been different at that time, and that the pyramid may have been there on the equator at that time because the pyramid had reflectors on it. Those reflectors, the whole pyramid was covered with reflective stones, 144,000 stones that you could shave in. They were like mirrors. And so people, would have been able to see the sky window. When the sun was directly over the pyramid, it would have shined 12 spots of light onto this glass or this ice shield, and that may have been all it took to cause it to come down.
Okay, a couple other points about, or questions, comments about the meetup idea. Patricia Rubrick says that she went up to one of these subscriber meetups for a big family homestead, and she thought it was awesome. And then Marshmallow made a comment when you said all your subscribers are weirdos, and he said, I'm not a weirdo, but then he said, well, wait a minute, maybe I am. At least that's how my lifestyle is looked at. Hey, look, so we're all weirdos, right?
Yeah, the reason we need to get together is because we're the throwaways of society. I mean, if you're listening to me and you're not pulling your hair out wanting to kill me, there's something wrong with you. Because 99% of the planet, even people I love very dearly, when I start talking to them about this stuff, they go insane. I could be at a cashier's, at the cashier at Walmart paying for my groceries, talking my stuff, and these little 16-year-old cashiers that have never been out in the world will instantly know they want to kill me. You can just see it in their face, like, shut up. And so, yeah, I think that's one of the reasons I'd like to meet up with people, because it's like I've never met anybody like me before, in real life. I got a couple of people that are kind of halfway there. I guess it's like when Moses was on the earth, there were some people that were really hip to it, but not all billion of them or however many follow him. It's like 100,000, 500,000 people following him out there. You can believe that most of them were just like the people that you can get along with. They could get along with each other, but a lot of it was just tolerating one another. But it would be good if we could all get together. And I really, the fantasy of just meeting up at a restaurant, that would just wreck it. I really want everybody to be here. I'd like to be able to get my whole place completely cleaned up, cut all the grass and prune all the trees and have some like oranges hanging off the trees, and get my house cleaned up, and maybe get extension cords for people that have campers so that they can plug their campers in, and then have tents all set up in the woods so people have a place to stay out there, maybe build some outhouses. But I really wouldn't just want people coming over the way it's looking right now.
There's one quick question in the past from Jandy Spencer asking about growing potatoes in a bucket. Have you ever done, that's kind of a permaculture question, I guess?
I'm doing it right now, but you know, have I think the question is probably, have you ever done it successfully? Because you know, here's the deal: you can take, and this is the way some people do it. It's kind of a pain because tires are so heavy. But you can take and put a tire on the ground and fill it up with dirt and put some taters in there. And when they get to where they're about this bushy, you put another tire and you pour some more dirt. And then those bushy parts will grow through that dirt. You put another tire and some more dirt. But what happens is at the end of the season, when the potatoes die off, you take the first tire off, and there's a big old pile of potatoes, right? And so you eat those potatoes, and you take another tire off, and there's because they'll keep doing that everywhere you do that. You can stack like, and you can do it in a 55-gallon drum or something. Just put a little dirt, and then as it gets bigger, put some more dirt, and then when it's over with, dump the whole 55-gallon drum out and get them out of there. But it's just like if you got rings that you can stack on top of one another, you know, it makes it easier to store them, you know, because you just leave them in the ground. Put some straw on top of them. I've never done it, but you know, I have grown potatoes. It's just around, you know, I'm living in the swamp. There's like 100 million things out here eating everything I plant, and I don't like using pesticides. And organic, yeah, I don't want to hurt anybody's feelings if you're like a worshiper of organic gardening, but organic is just barely any better than nothing. And it's like figs. I don't know. Ala Toledo's talked to me on Skype. Well, I think I've shown people my fig trees. I've got fig trees that are taller than my house, completely surrounding the house. And probably at the beginning of the season, I had what would amount to 40 gallons of figs. And I didn't get any. You know, it's not that I don't know how to grow figs. It's just that I got a soft heart and don't want to kill squirrels. If I killed every squirrel that came up here, I would have so much fruit I couldn't keep up with it. But the squirrels pretty much rip everything off. Last year I got a whole tree of persimmons because of one of those real bad snakes, water moccasin. It was living under my house. And he would sneak out there to the persimmon tree and just sit there. And so one day, one of the squirrels disappeared. Well, none of the other squirrels would go around his tree after that. So I got one tree load of persimmons. I got 25 persimmon trees. You know, that's enough to feed 100 people more persimmons than they ever want to eat. But I won't get a single persimmon this year unless a moccasin gets one of them squirrels, because I'm not going to kill him. You know.
Another question from Jandy Spencer is asking about your opinion on tattoos, and do you think that they're against the Bible or against Jesus Christ? They're asking because they want to get a tattoo in remembrance of their son, and they're scared as to whether they should do it or not because they don't want to go against Jesus.
I did a video a while back called Homosexuals, and I know this sounds like it's not even doesn't apply, but there's a lot of laws in the Bible that were given to the nation of Israel, and Jesus came and he put an end to that. I mean, he really did. He specifically put an end to some laws, and after his death, it was stated that he put an end to all of those laws. Now, during Jesus' ministry, he was asked about that several times, and he said, "I did not come to take so much as one letter away from the law." But what you got to understand when you're looking at the Bible is that Jesus always made a distinction between God's law and the law of Moses, because the law of Moses was given to him when the Jews rejected God's law. So there are some very strict prohibitions against tattoos, against homosexuality, against certain foods, against not performing certain rituals, against not, you know, if you didn't blow a horn during the eclipse, you know, you could be killed. That's a bad thing to do. But when those laws were done away with, then all we have is what's called grace or undeserved kindness, and that's where, you know, we are sinning. God knows we cannot stop sinning. He expects us to do everything in our power to not do more sins than are required of us. But, you know, I mean, if you're a homosexual, what are you going to do? And if you want a tattoo, you know, I don't even want to put this out here because it's just, it stirs people up. But the reality is there's nothing in the Bible against tattoos outside of the law of Moses. Law of Moses, no tattoos. But then again, according to the law of Moses, like when you capture a female slave, drive a nail through her ear. You know, I mean, a lot of that stuff is weird. So, um, I used to have a rule that anybody that got a tattoo, stay away from them. But look at Usamos, you know. I mean, that people out there haven't seen Usamos, but you and I have seen him, and he's one of the best people that I've ever met. You know.
So is that a thumbs up or a thumbs down for tattoos?
I wouldn't get anything done to my body, but you know, here's the deal: you're going to get a new body soon anyway, so go for it. Put anything you want
Okay.
on there, but just know that you're going to lose that in about 15 years.
Well, let's hope hope it's a little bit sooner than that.
Oh
But
yeah, yeah. I don't want to die before the end of the world. That's my whole life. That's my biggest expectation is to watch that.
well, last comment is from Simple Sister Living. She says, "I don't always agree with you, but your work is important, and because really nobody else is saying what you are, and that's why she listens to you." Other than that, I think we're done.
Oh yeah, fantastic. We got an hour. Do we do an hour?
A little bit over. So that astrology stuff really took up a lot of time. So
Yeah, got all wound up again. You know,
get it out of your system, I
Yeah,
guess.
I'll have to. Maybe I need to ask the VA for some pills for the next one.
Yeah, maybe take it like you said with some vodka and let's get it out of your system.
That would be a special. I would have to announce that in advance. Get ready. I'm going to do the next live stream on vodka.
Well, I guess keep the meetup in mind. Looks like a lot of people were positive about that. I'm not sure how many people live in that area, but other than that, you want to go ahead and take us out?
Is this a love you or as if you don't want to survive? Yeah, that's don't if you don't. Hey, yeah, this is big stuff. Look, the Bible Code series is going to continue. Maybe it won't be formalized with a script and all of that, but I'll keep addressing different questions as they come up in my head. And this is very important. This is stuff that has been hidden from the churches for 6,000 years. And so you're a very, very special group if you are hearing this information and understanding it. So keep watching the videos. Keep coming here week after week. And I promise you, you won't be sorry. And as always, if you don't want to survive, don't listen to me. I think I was supposed to figure out how to turn this off last time.
Go to the exit, I think.
Yeah, exit. Do you want to exit? Are you sure? Yeah.